in Virginia, but just much more of them.
And I'm sure way hotter than your time in Portland too, huh?
That's for sure. Yeah, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, so we are live tonight, back on the track. We've got a epic one planned for you this evening. A little bit of a background about our guest. He is the head coach at Ave Maria University in Florida. He is the American record holder in the mile. He is an Olympian. He's a three-time United States champion in the 1500-meter run. He's also the high school American record holder of 3:53:43. I'm sure there's a couple other things I've left out there, but Alan Webb is joining us tonight. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on, Rich.
It's an honor and a pleasure. So we like to start off with a little bit of a through line, and I'm sure you've probably heard this hundreds of times, if not thousands of times by now. But January 20th, 2001, I was coaching track and field indoors in New Jersey, and the team that I was coaching, we happened to have a meet at the 168th Street Armory, and I was able to not only take in my first sub 4 minute mile live in person, but I also got to watch you break 4 minutes for the first time. And then soon thereafter at the high school nationals down at Raleigh, I got to watch you perform as well. And then we also, Jimmy and I were at a family party. Everyone was doing their thing, and we were glued to the TV set watching the Prefontaine Classic when you ran 3:53. So it is an honor and a pleasure to speak with you tonight. We know you got a lot going on here. You just had your first national champion, so we want to get into that with you. But yeah, thank you for joining us. We, like I said before we jumped on, we have been fans and followers for a long time, so it's great to have a conversation with you tonight.
Well, again, thank you very much for the kind words and the introduction. And it was quite a ride for me as an athlete, and I'm just happy to be able to kind of give back a lot of my experiences to the next group.
Yeah, and it seems like you didn't waste too much time in your coaching career. You've already had a national champion. We just spoke with Coach Bradley Souter for the second time yesterday. They were the men's national champions at the NAIA this past weekend in Indiana. So we were talking to him about his athletes and all they got going on. And we saw that you had your first national champion in the 800 meters. Michael Long is a gentleman's name. He's a freshman, so he's got a bright future. Talk a little bit about that event and how that went for you. And was that something you expected, or was that a little bit of a surprise for you?
Well, it went very well. You know, Michael is a really special athlete. You know, he's got it's fun to coach him because he does a lot of the things that he does a lot of the things well that I didn't. And including is great at racing. But you know, he was ranked first going in, but I knew that can be a scary spot to be sometimes. Uh, Being ranked first going into a championship, but he handled it very well. And you brought up Coach Bradley, and he had to beat one of his athletes, you know, and you know they won the title as a team, but you know, one of his freshmen, Luca Santorum, was really the guy that Michael that really had to fight really hard to win it. You know, but I really feel like, you know, the you know, to compete and is, you know, in the true sense of the word, to strive together. You know, you know, it made the win really a pretty big win to have to go up against one of Bradley's athletes. somebody equally as special as Luca is. He's an incredible runner, and um, it made for an exciting race. I'll say that. So he was ranked first, but to say that it was like a foregone conclusion to win was far from the truth. He had to fight really hard to win.
So Michael was ranked first going into the national championship. Like Rich said, he is a freshman this year. Did you know recruiting him that you had a national champ on your hands?
Well, I knew he was special for sure. I didn't, but to say that he was going to win a national title, I had no idea, if that was going to happen. Each year the circumstances change, so you can't necessarily always predict what's going to happen. Bradley did a great job getting Luca to come to Cumberland, and so I didn't know he was going to be there. I didn't know what the other upperclassmen were gonna do coming in, going in. So, but I did know he was special. He had run 150 in high school. But that kind of came along late. We were already sort of pretty deep in the recruiting process by the time he did that. So so I knew he was special, but didn't know he was going to win the whole thing by the time the season ended.
So Michael wins as a freshman. What's next for him? How do you kind of keep him humble and keep him thirsty? Won national title as a freshman. What's next?
Well, he's actually going to compete again this season. He's gonna go to the U20 USATF championships in June. So because he's under 20, so he'll have to race against all the big D1 freshmen, and possibly a couple super fast high schoolers. So he's not ranked first going into that. So he'll have a chance to kind of go up against the next level. And I think Michael has his eyes open. He knows that it's not that the competition is always going to be pushing him. I think he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders. So I know he wants to continue to improve. So he's eager to keep working.
Coach, I guess the elephant in the room would be, as we said, we talked to Coach Souter, and unfortunately for Luca, he's going on to the big times. He's going to Texas A&M. Do you worry with Michael about that sort of stuff at all?
Oh, whether Michael's going to go somewhere else? I mean, he hasn't given me any indication of that. He has his sister goes to Ave. He has two siblings that graduated from Ave Maria already, and I feel like he's pretty locked in for staying here. So,
okay, good.
But that's the way of the world now. Is in college, it's kind of it's actually probably gotten worse, or I didn't say worse, but yeah, just more often, with the transfers. Even at the D1 level, I mean, like there's, you got to sort of recruit your own athletes in a lot of ways. So it's yeah, I mean, is it? I'll see Michael in in a week. So
curious, do you ever spike up and work out with him, or are those days behind you?
Oh my gosh, they're behind me. I can't even warm up with the guys now. I messed my knee up, and so I can jog a little bit, but it's pretty low key. I can warm up with my 11-year-old daughter. That's what I can do. So yeah. In fact, I wrote a little workout for her to do. She's gonna start warming up as we're finishing up here. So
Coach, 2 years in, got your first national champ, ahead of schedule, on schedule, behind. What do you think?
ahead of schedule. I mean, I if you had told me 2 years ago I'd have somebody winning a national title in after 24 months, I would have been like, let's do it, man. you know, Ave Maria. This is our second track season as a team. They didn't have track. They just had cross country before 2 years ago. So quite literally starting from scratch, and to kind of be where we are, and at the conference level and the national level is excellent, and I'm not, I'm fighting a lot of the same battles that many of the NAIA coaches are too, just trying to take it one day at a time and develop all your athletes, so I'm just sort of so thrilled, to have this measure of success. And Michael was not the only one that was successful this season. We had other people that didn't quite make it to that level, but certainly got better, and I try my best to keep everybody moving forward, from top to bottom. And so I've been very pleased and just really just inspired by the athletes on our team too, that just work really hard, and give it their all, and just to see a very high majority, be improving consistently has been just a pleasure of mine.
So you talk about the team constantly improving. You guys brought home, I believe it was 10 medals at the conference championship. So congratulations on that. For you, coming from coaching at Division I NCAA, what's the difference for you being at the NAIA level and being a head coach now?
Well, I think the biggest difference, I think, is there is a higher range of abilities. You do have somebody like Michael Long, who is just an extremely gifted physically athlete. But I have guys in the team that are just trying to run 18 minutes for 5K, and some ladies that are just trying to get to 24 minutes in the 5K. And I'm trying to help them too, and there's a spectrum in between, so, and I just trying to just help each person get a little better, and being the head coach now, I have to be more aware of the whole team, regardless of event group. Not that I'm coaching day to day every single person. I have other coaches that help me with some of the other events. But just being aware of that, and just making sure the program as a whole is moving forward, but still with the same sort of the same mentality that we're all here just to try to get the best out of ourselves. And if each person does that individually, then as a team, we're gonna succeed. And it's not complicated, but and we just try to stick to that.
So talking about that spectrum and that range of people kind of being all over the board, and like Rich was saying at the beginning of the podcast, you were a very elite runner, very young, and you ran at the elite level for a long time, and then coached Division One. Was that a learning curve for you? Was that hard? Did you have to turn down some of the intensity and realize that there's different goals on different levels, and you got to help people, and that's the main goal, as long as run better, and it might not be a world record pace, but they're breaking their records, they're doing better.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Well, I wouldn't say I had to. I would say I had to learn like really what works, and I made a lot of mistakes. I was not flawless by any means. I think that there's some things I could have done better, and I think one of my biggest enemies was that I did too much a lot of the time. So I had to kind of learn what that line was, and where I could improve, so that when I went and talked to or when I gave athletes workouts, they were just a little bit more intelligent, smarter. Not necessarily, not that people aren't working hard, but sort of working smarter, not hard, necessarily harder. And even I feel like that's regardless of level. Being D1 and NAIA, I don't think that it really. I mean, the pace, the speed changes, yes, but sort of the mentality and the basic structure of, let's say, a day or a week or a month or a year still basically stays the same. And I had to learn some things, not only through experience, but also just a few things, like sort of scientifically, like, hey, like, what's going on with your body? Like, why did it work? Like, why does doing the workout, like, at this, at this volume, and at, at this time, why would that work? And just learning a little more, that's what I had to kind of continue to do, was to kind of act like I was dumb, like pretend like I didn't know what I was doing, and then, and ask questions and talk to other great coaches. And through that process, I feel like I've grown a lot as a coach, and learned a ton. And and that's just, I think I'd say it'd give me more experience and also confidence too. And when I get in front of our group, or when I write workouts, I feel a little bit, I feel much more prepared to know what to say, and what to give them.
Coach, I probably should have led with this in the beginning, but here we are. One of the things we do, with the reason why we have coaches like yourself on, and talk to different coaches in Division II, NAIA, JUCO, mid-major schools, is Jimmy and I like to present conversations to people that we wish adults would have had with us when we were coming up through the high school ranks and going through the process of recruiting and finding a university and what fits and what works and all that sort of stuff. So tell us a little bit about the university, what sort of maybe specialties they might have, undergrad population, those sorts of things. Tell us about Ave Maria. And of course, I don't want to butcher it, but I'm a little bit on the spectrum when it comes to college mascots. So if you could get into that for me, I would appreciate it as well.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll hit on the gyrenes at the end. But Ave Maria is just an incredibly special place. It's a small private Catholic school, and we've been talking about NAIA. We compete in the NAIA, and yeah, we offer like academically, we sort of classify ourselves as giving a classical liberal arts education. And so the first couple of years are pretty set in stone to like what you take, before you start to start to specialize a little more. And like I said, it's a Catholic school that we sort of pride ourselves on being a Newman Guide Catholic school. So really, what that sort of reveals is that we try to adhere to the teachings of the Catholic Church in the curriculum and in all that we do. From top to bottom, from our president to AD to myself as a coach. We pray as a team, really daily, and the faith is a big part of what we do. There are courses that they would have to, that everybody's required to take, that where you learn about Catholic teachings, and it's integrated into the university. So that, I think that's sort of the unique thing. And we're growing too. We have I think the theology department is the one PhD that we have currently, but you can get a master's in theology, you can get an MBA, you can also get a Catholic educational leadership master's, post-grad, and then undergrad. It's got, like, I think we have 30 different majors, and I would say they're all the quote majors, I would say. And we just added we don't have engineering as a major, but we do have an engineering minor. So that would be the one thing that is sort of growing in our university is that part of it. But computer science, economics, business, physics, chemistry, you can be pre-med or pre-PT if you'd like. So it's like I said, all the majors. One of the guys that just graduated, who was actually the conference champ in last year in the 1500. He got second this year because there was this really awesome guy from STU that came in as a grad transfer that beat him this year. But he was actually really one of Michael's great training partners. He's going on to University of Michigan Dental School. So it's a small school, 1,200 undergrad, but you can really flourish academically there too. And then we have a really great athletic department too. We're building momentum there as well. I've talked about the track and field program and cross country, but the other sports too are doing well. Our basketball team made it to the national tournament. They won a first round game. They were a 9 seed going into the NAIA championship, and they won the first game. They lost in the second round to the number 2 team in the country, but it's pretty good. And our golf team made it to the national tournament. Women's volleyball also made it to the national tournament. Our tennis team is doing pretty well as well. So it's just a special place, athletically, academically, spiritually. So and our mascot is the Gyrenes, which nobody hardly ever knows what that is. So a Gyrene is the nickname for the Marines. So a Gyrene is a Marine, and that and sort of the animal that goes along with it is a bulldog. So if you see the bulldog, that's like what it's supposed to look like. And that all comes from our founder, who was Tom Monahan, the founder of the university, who really made a huge, the massive financial contribution at the beginning. Who was he was the founder of Domino's Pizza, and made a ton of money with Domino's Pizza. He owned the Tigers when they won the World Series in '83. And so he's a celebrity in himself, and he himself was a Marine, and so that's where the Gyrenes came from.
Fascinating. I did some research. I couldn't pronounce it, but I saw that it had an affiliation with the Marines, but I had no idea that the founder of Domino's was a former Marine and also a founder of a university. So that's learned something new here today. Jimmy and I also do a fair amount of coverage on wrestling as well, and spirituality and faith is a big thing with a lot of wrestlers in the wrestling community, and it seems like it's a reoccurring theme with the NAIA schools as well. Is your faith something that has always been pretty prominent to the forefront for you? But I don't really remember it ever coming up as an athlete or anything. Was that one of the reasons that drew you to Ave Maria?
Well, it is one of the reasons that drew me to Ave Maria. Yes, that definitely is. I'd say that's really the prime, like sort of the genesis, sort of no pun intended. But it was not prominent during my career. That came later after I finished running. I had a conversion later. I'll tell the story quickly and just say that I had to sort of die the proverbial death of an athlete to really kind of start to more genuinely seek something more lasting. I think I feel sort of in a way blessed to kind of have fallen down, at the end of my career athletically, to kind of wake myself up to say, hey, well, what's important? What's really important, not like eternally important. And I finally had the space in my heart to kind of open up more. And I also I did grow up in a Protestant denomination, so the seeds were there, but it wasn't really like deeply rooted, and I have to say this, I wasn't, I had to be convinced that that I was doing something genuinely, and I just over time, I just learned about the faith, and I couldn't deny the truth anymore. And so I joined the RCIA, and I came into full communion of the church at the church in 2017. And I really wanted to, offer up, all my experiences, with the eternal perspective, offer it up to the Lord, and just wanted to commit myself to that. And, before I knew it, this opportunity arose, and I really, I just felt this, I was sort of being called to come here to Ave. And, that was 2 years ago, and here we are. We had two successful years on the track, and I feel like I've grown both as a coach and grown closer to the Lord through the last 2 years. And just touching on the NAIA specifically, there's a lot of other Catholic schools that we compete against. So it's kind of cool to kind of have to compete against those schools, but not just Catholic schools, but also other Protestant Christian schools that we compete against. And we were on the campus of Indiana Wesleyan, which is a Wesleyan school. So sort of striving together athletically, but then also spiritually too. There was the Cumberland's won, but Marian University, they were second. They were right there. They were right there. They gave them a run for their money, and they even had a guy. They had a guy in that 800 final, pushing Michael too. So I mean, Marian's doing very well. It's actually a cool story. Actually, our Ave Maria's campus ministry director, who's Father Rick, he's going to Marian. He just moved from Ave to go to Marion, and I finally met one of the Marion coaches. We were at the medal stand, and I said, "Hey man, we got to get a selfie, and I got to send it to Father Rick." And I was texting Father Rick the picture, because telling him, "Hey, here we are. We're all here, man." So it's been just a wonderful experience to get to know some of the other coaches in the NAIA, including some other Catholic schools. So it's been great.
Coach, I appreciate you sharing your coming to faith story with us. I can relate. I identified myself a long time as an athlete, and then after sports, I had to start looking for other aspects of myself of who I was, because I identified so much as an athlete, and faith is very big for me. So I appreciate you sharing that. And the school being a Catholic school, and it in the curriculum, do you find that as like, does that make it harder to recruit kids to come there? How does that kind of work, like, as far as when you're trying to recruit someone and you kind of want to know if they're Catholic or not?
That's a great question, and I'll give you the answer is it's both. So it's in some ways it's harder, but in other ways it's easier. It in a lot of ways it makes it where the people that want to come, they already kind of want to come, because they kind of find out about it. They kind of find out about it. And so this might sound a little corny, but like, I just, like, a lot of times I just let Christ do the recruiting, and I'm just sort of here selling Ferraris, and I just kind of stand here and kind of and kind of people come, so it's not that I'm like not doing anything. I'm not just sitting around like just not doing any recruiting, but people that don't want to be here probably wouldn't even like look, or even accept a phone call, so it sort of sells itself a lot of times, and the people that want to have faith be a priority, they'll be pumped about coming, and so I guess, yeah, that's what I mean by, like, yes, it can eliminate some people who don't really want to be a part of that, for sure, but then it also makes it easier, because when you have let's take Michael Long, for example. You have a devout Catholic family, who's has had some siblings come here. We're sort of special. We're sort of set apart from some other schools that might not have the faith be as strong a priority. So when mom and dad are talking to the athlete, you're gonna get some help there. You're gonna get help there to where to help you compete with some other schools.
Do you find it easier when you're giving motivational speeches or trying to lift someone up, where you can throw scripture out there, you can reference the Bible, where at other colleges that you've worked at, you might have not been able to do that or feel comfortable to do that?
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't always totally off limits other places, but it's definitely much more. It's definitely more, like you said, more comfortable doing it. You don't have to sort of think too much about it, but enter through the narrow gate, for broad and wide is the path to destruction. It's if you want to kind of give a little kick in the push to inspire some perseverance through tough times, or making the tough choices, to not only from a moral standpoint, but also from an athletic standpoint. Hey, like, should I try to go to bed early and get a lot of sleep? Well, I mean, it's up to you if you want to be good. Like it's a narrow road, that leads to the life of a successful runner, just as it can be to live the Christian moral life.
Coach, have you found in the 2 years that you've been there that just because of your athletic background and your achievements and your accomplishments that maybe some strong 1500-meter, 800-meter runner types have just reached out to you?
A little bit. Not. It's still, I'm still working. We're still sort of, I'd say, building momentum. But yeah, I mean, uh, it's still. I would say yes, but not. Like not like with floodgates open type of thing. I think some people, I'd say I'd get some people that would return my calls or answer an email or a text or something. But I'm still just like like a lot of other college coaches. It's not just like I snap my fingers and they're coming. So in some ways, yes. In some, I'd say they'll return they'll answer my messages, but it still won't be like a shoe-in kind of thing.
And how wide is your net? Are you trying to focus your recruiting in the Southeast, or are you going up north a little bit to Virginia, maybe into the Mid-Atlantic and maybe west, or are you trying to stay within the Southeast right now?
I'd say I'm kind of mixed. It's been a mix. I'm still trying to like figure out what the trends are for here. I mean, Florida for sure. Still still a big Florida, bigger in Florida. But we do well in Michigan. We do well in sort of Midwest. I'd say Michigan. Tom. I mean, I'll bring up Tom Monahan again. He's from Michigan, and actually, I mean, it started. Ave Maria Institute started in Michigan. That's another longer story, but so we do well there. But we get sprinkles from Colorado, a few New Mexicos, not a ton from the West Coast, but a little bit, a couple Californias, a couple, Washington, a little bit, and a little bit of the Northeast, but yeah, it's a mix. It's sprinkled around. Yes, some Virginia, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So, yeah, it's a dusting, I would say, throughout the country.
Coach, I'm curious to see what your answer to this question is. We ask all the coaches that we have on Wrestle and Running what their CEO position of their program looks like as far as being a head coach at the college level. We understand that it's not all writing workouts and just going to meets. There's a lot of other things that is involved in being a head coach. But what does that look like for you?
Boy, you're right. It's not just coaching. It's not just writing workouts. I do have some assistants that help me, that help me with administering workouts. Some more part time, and even volunteer. Then there's there's looking at the athletes' academics. We have meetings that monitor the academic side of all the athletes, to making sure they're again staying on top of their grades. We also try to we also do some volunteering, monitoring service hours. Also, and then as the head coach, you also monitoring the budget of how much money we're spending on what. You got to manage that, and managing the racing schedule. And then also there's the logistics of travel, getting all that stuff organized, how you going to get there, buses and flights, and so yeah, I might be forgetting something, but those are a few of the non-running thing. Oh, and we just had a long conversation about recruiting. So the recruiting is huge. It's great athletes make great coaches. So you gotta. A better coach than I said, recruiting's like shaving. If you don't do it, then it starts to show. Which I need to. Looks like I need to shave a little bit here.
What do you enjoy the most, and what do you kick off to your wife to do?
I love being out there, like at the track, like when they're doing the workouts. That's my favorite part, and just talking. That's my favorite part, and seeing everybody in action, and then sort of taking all that in and then going again to try to get everybody a little bit better, because it's almost like the race the race part is sort of the reward for all the work that you do. So it like really the like sort of like the winning part kind of happens in the practices, or at the workouts. And so I love seeing that. It's like kind of watching it happen before your eyes. Like you could take a race like that 800. I mean, it only lasted 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, less than like a minute and 50 seconds, just under. But how much went into that? Like how much time and how many workouts went into doing that? And sort of, it's just like a little game, like a puzzle. You're trying to figure out like what ingredients go into that. And when you're at the practice and watching that happen, it's really fun to do that and get to know that person, like individually, and to kind of get to know what's going to get them to get better. And along with being at the practice, just those little moments of communication with the athletes, like, hey, like, how's it going? Like is it, how are you doing? And just communicating with those people that's super fun. That's the coaching part. The actual coaching part is awesome. But submitting receipts for budgeting and taping, copying receipts, and that's it's not glamorous, but you got to do it. I'm sure every coach out that's coached in college has had to do that, and it's just how it goes.
So
yeah,
I must ask, sorry, Rich, I must ask, you said the coaching part and tinkering with the workouts is your favorite. Are any of your athletes dabbling with the double T, the double threshold?
We're not. And I'll tell you why I haven't tried it yet. We might do it because one of the problems that I have is that it's super hot here in Ave. It's like real hot, and so like we don't even do a lot of doubles here, because it's really hard to do it. You got to wake up like super early to do anything in the AM, like and then it's very polar here. You guys got to go really, really early or really like kind of late in the evening. And I mean like 6 at least, really 7 o'clock is what I found is kind of the better time in the evening. So then when are they sleeping? And I want them to sleep. And so the idea of like even doing double runs is like, it's hard for me to even push a lot of just easier runs than again, doing double threshold. We might give it a shot, maybe like in our preseason, just to see how it goes. But in general, I haven't really had the opportunity to kind of try that with our group. So the answer is no. I haven't done it. I need to go test it myself. Like this is even though I'm all busted up, it'll be super slow. I need to like just feel what that feels like, I think, before I throw the double LT at them.
Well, talking about the heat and the humidity being such a factor, there's been some science out there, and kind of the correlation between heat and humidity training, similar effects, stimulus to being in elevation. Have you seen any of that, or I should say, are you're taking that into consideration? So say with like an athlete like Michael, you have, he's a 149, 800-meter runner. Are you taking that into consideration when you're writing his workouts and or kind of giving him the splits that you want to hit?
Yeah, I do. I factor that in. In fact, that's one of the, I factor that in. And and I'd say there, you're right. There is, it can give you like kind of a similar effect as the altitude. But the problem with the sort of, you can't, it's hard to depend on that like you can like with altitude, because it's not consistent. Let's say like you go to Boulder and it's at 5,000 whatever feet, or you go to wherever you go, some Flagstaff, whatever. It's consistent. You're there. It's either, Flagstaff is 7,000, Boulder is 5,200, Albuquerque is 6,000. It's consistent. So you're there and it's consistent. Whereas like humidity can vary, from day to day or week to week, wherever you are. And it's sort of it's kind of a funny stimulus to play with, because it just dehydrates you is the big thing. It sucks out your all of your fluids. So it's kind of a hard thing to kind of like adapt to fully, so I've had to kind of I had to just shorten things up a lot of shorten things up. I can't do really long sessions. It just doesn't really work, right? It doesn't work. Like if it, I remember being at altitude, and you can still kind of go long. You just have to slow it down a little bit. Whereas, man, when you're just when it's super hot and humid, you just can't go that far. It's just really tough, because it just sucks it out of you. I mean, if you went and you watched the Olympic trials, which are in Orlando, and there was a whole bunch of people that were pretty fit, and they went out there and they just got punched in the face. They just weren't prepared. It's hard to really prepare for that, because when your body runs out of fluid, it's just, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
You're done. So it's been an interesting sort of experience to kind of try to figure out how to get the best out of people. So and for Michael, it hasn't been a huge issue, because he's running the 800, so he doesn't have to do super duper long workouts, so it's hasn't been a huge issue. But for some of the sort of the prototypical long distance, quote unquote long distance, it's been a challenge to kind of figure out how to make it work.
Does it let up in the late fall and through the winter, or is it kind of, it's always there for you where you are?
No, it lets up. Yeah, the winter it'll
Yeah.
be more dry. It'll be more dry, and I would just say it's just a longer season. Actually, our average high in the summer is, when I moved from Little Rock, Arkansas, it's actually technically 1 degree less in July than it is in Little Rock, Arkansas. We just get it through the fall. It's just like in October, you're like, oh man, it's still super hot, right? It just doesn't break until really November, So, but I'm sort of learning the rhythm of things here, and I think that I had some conversations with the Belen Jesuit coach, and like what he, like I was like, man, what do you do? Like how do you manage? how do you keep your guys going? And going in the evening is helps with that, because even though it's a little hotter, the humidity is lower. I mean, it's later in the day, so that tends to be, sort of the better time of day, is in sort of the later evening, right at dusk, like right when the sun's starting to go down or has just gone down.
Coach, I am in Florida. I'm outside of Orlando, and I feel you about it. Goes past November to November. I remember being down here. I just want fall. I just want fall. Like, I don't mind the hot weather, but I'm ready for fall.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, but I tell you, everybody's coming to visit you in January. They're like, "Oh man,
Yeah.
let's go, let's go visit Jimmy. Who wants to go hang out with Jimmy in Orlando?"
You finally get fall in January, February, and March.
Yep, 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 yeah. My
Coach,
wife is from Wisconsin, and so all of her, like all of her family's suddenly comes to visit, and in January and February they want to be snowbirds.
yeah.
It's a good life.
Coach, one last question I have for you before we get into the Final Four, if Rich doesn't. As a coach now, having some time as a coach, if you came across an athlete who was in high school running the times that you were running in high school, what advice would you give that athlete?
I would say number one, I'd say be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. If you're patient and consistent, you will continue to improve. You don't necessarily have to be Superman. You just have to be you and be consistent. Um, and then I would say the faith part. Whatever faith you have, let that grow. Wherever you are, it doesn't. I don't. It doesn't really matter where you are. I just say move forward with it. Take whatever you got and let it grow. Because if like we could sit down and break down like what what workouts Alan Webb messed up on, but my real regret was that I didn't prioritize my faith. I didn't do that. That's the regret that I have, is that I didn't have that. And so I would those would be my two advice.
Coach, you mentioned earlier, this last one I have for you. You mentioned earlier that Michael is a phenomenal athlete and he does a lot of things right that you did wrong. Other than maybe not being patient, what are some of those things that he does that you didn't do?
Well, he's naturally fast. I was more of like an aerobic guy that had to learn how to be fast. He's kind of the other way. He's just so fast naturally. He just gobbles up the ground. He's like a bigger guy. He's just
Yeah, he's a
taller.
big guy.
He's a big guy. But he uses it well. There's some big guy. Everybody says, "Oh, you have long legs, you're a faster runner," but that's not always the case. It sometimes works against you. But Michael's not that way. He's strong enough to manage it all. And so he's just really fast. I mean, we get out there, like I got to be careful with him. I kind of brought up the Ferrari thing. It's like driving a Ferrari. Like you tell Michael to go run fast, he will run really fast. If I do 100, like a flying 100, he will just blow it away. So he's super fast. So it's just my goal is to keep that there, to not make him slow, not just to give him a ton of running, like tons of running. He runs quite a bit. He runs a decent amount for an 800 guy, but not so much where it's going to take his speed away. I didn't want to take that weapon away from him. Because you saw in that video, when Luca came up on him, he had something there, because Luca's super strong too, and he's fast too. So I didn't, he's just wanted to keep that there for him. I didn't want to take that away. Plus, I know he likes doing it. We do the really fast stuff. He just likes getting out there and just putting his foot to the floor and going.
What kind of open forward does he run?
He ran an open. I think he only did it once. It was 48.3, but I had him 2 times split under 48 seconds in relays. I had him at a 47.3 and a 47.7 on 2 different 4x4s, two different times. And I think I put him in an open 200 once this season, and I think it was 22.1 or 2. You have to go back on T-Fers and double check that. So he's got speed. He's got some quick speed, and for sure.
Has he run the 15 at all?
He ran 1:1500 this year. He ran 3:55 for 1500, and which would convert to about a 4:14 mile. And before that, his PR in the mile from like his June, I think he ran it once in like 4:36. So,
wow.
And then he ran, I put him in a full mile just for fun. He ran 4:09. Sort of like that was, so he ran it twice this year. He ran 1:1500 and 3:55, and then 1 mile in 4:09. So I know he could get way better in that too, but I didn't force it. Just didn't want to push it down too much, because I didn't want to get away from his goal of the 800 being his primary thing. But I think he could, in a year or two, if you're that fast in the 800, you probably run under 4 minutes, maybe. Got all these the super shoes and stuff. You think you can get there.
Right on. That's awesome.
Coach, is there anything about the program that we haven't talked about, or the school that we haven't talked about, that you want to speak about?
Gosh, guys, I think we hit everything. I think we hit it.
Good. So, first question I got for you. Are you a coffee drinker?
Oh boy, yes, definitely. If you want to know if you want to know what my nutritional vice is, it would be coffee.
How do you brew it, and how do you take it?
Most of the time black, and I just use a regular coffee maker, because I'm a little bit lazy, because I probably drink too much coffee. So yeah, my wife kind of rolls her eyes, because she's like a connoisseur and will do the pour. She does a pour over. But I'm the head coach, and so I'm a little bit busier. I'm going in and out, so I'll just make the pot and stick it in my refrigerator, and then like put it and then microwave it like throughout the day. My argument is that it helps me drink a little less, because then I just take these little bits, and then like space it throughout the day. Instead of having like one big one in the morning, I'll have like a bunch of little ones, because I like the taste. But try not to have too much of the caffeine throughout the day, so I don't shrivel up too much. It's probably what messed up my body, is I started drinking too much coffee, and so I hope I can be a better example to our athletes. So I tell them not to drink too much coffee, and then I go out and do that. So it's not great.
Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Alan Webb?
Yeah, I would say prayer is the biggest thing. I have really three devotions that well, I take that back. 4. I guess you can say two are similar. One is I read scripture every day, or I try to read scripture every day. I have the Augustinian Institute's Bible in a Year, which they split it up. If you go through in 365 days, you'll read the whole Bible, and I do that. It's also part of our founder scholarship program, which I'm a facilitator for. So scripture every day, and then I'll pray the rosary. I try to pray the rosary every day. I have a commitment to the Rosary Confraternity, which is just committing to doing one the three main mysteries of the Rosary, the 15 mysteries once a week. And I also and along with that is sort of a similar devotion. It's just the 12-year Bridget prayers, which I started 3 years ago, which it's very similar to the same types of prayers as the Rosary. So that I'd say that's probably like about a 20-minute commitment, and then as often as I possibly can is go to daily mass. if I miss the other ones and I get that one in, then I feel better. It's and there's a mystical part of it. I can't explain it to you guys in words. You'd have to just kind of do it, and it. But being an Ave, it's easy. It's easy in Ave. I have to admit, it's way easier because there's so many options. So, but any practicing Catholic would probably agree with me and say that if you can get to daily mass, it's just awesome. You can't explain it until like later, like how you kind of get that. You just feel more complete. Yeah, and if I do those things, then usually the rest of my day, I'll get the best out of myself more consistently if I can do those things. The other parts of my day, the other parts, being a husband, being a father, being a coach, I can handle all of those things better if I find the time and commit time to doing those things.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you for that insight. I appreciate it. Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Oh man, I was just it's like a cheesy song, but it's the Firefly song. It's got the video, and it's by like Owl City, the guy. You guys heard of that guy? Oh man, it's called Firefly. It's like and he's got these like little like this little like symbol, monkey guy that goes in the video. It's awesome. So I was just like kind of jamming to that earlier. And I'm trying to finish up Joan of Arc, that Mark Twain wrote. Like I started like a year ago, and just haven't found the time to kind of sit down to finish it. So I'm trying to finish that. I'm in the middle of it. My oldest daughter her name is Joni, and I'm like trying to finish this book about Joan of Arc to maybe just trying to find like what makes her tick a little bit, because it's sort of like how she was named. So there you go.
We got some time in between now and cross country season, so hopefully you'll be able to get a little bit more reading in before the team comes back to campus for cross country camp.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Coach, last one I have for you. It could be food. It could be a Netflix show. We mentioned music a little bit. Maybe you're a Swiftie. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
I mean, I think that honestly, like I'll go back to the coffee thing. That's definitely like, I guess like sort of my indulgence, I would say. My wife and I will, if we do like any sort of date thing, we'll try to have a little coffee date, and so I guess that's it's not all, I wouldn't, it's not a great thing, but I think there's definitely worse things in the world than having some coffee with your wife.
Do you have a favorite coffee shop down there?
There's a space called The Bean. It's pretty good. And then, but my wife makes it really well. She's the connoisseur. She's the coffee connoisseur. I sometimes go more for the effect than making it perfect, but she's very, very particular about, it has to be ground, it has to be whole bean. You have to grind it right then, right before you put it in, the pour over. So she'll get you a good cup of coffee, for sure.
All right.
Does she make you pour over from time to time?
Maybe like on Father's Day.
All right.
Well, it's coming up, so
it is.
You're in
it's
luck.
coming up. It's coming up, I guess.
Coach, thank you so much for your time tonight. Greatly appreciate it. Like Rich said at the beginning of this podcast, we are track nerds. I grew up, my dad educated me on Jim Ryan, and you broke the mile when I was in 8th grade. So that was huge for me. Like that was like the Super Bowl from how we were raised. So thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for your time tonight, and best of luck. We'll be following you guys in cross country.
Oh, it was my pleasure to be on. Jimmy, Rich, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Alan. It was an honor and a pleasure to meet you. And like Jimmy said, we've been fans for a while. So thank you for all you've done for the sport, and thank you for what you're doing with the sport now. And best of luck in the fall.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great night. Good luck